Hey all, I'm Ritika, the Senior Product Designer for Pipeline Security team, and I am back with an update on how we did in the solution validation research that we recently ran for this new layout we had created, consolidating the two tables on the variables for variables on the project setting page. By two tables, I mean we currently show like both a table which kind of lists the variables which are created at project level. And right below that, there is another table that shows the ones which are inherited. And these can be inherited from any of the parent levels. And the reason that we felt the need to like pursue this was when there's a division between like inherited and project variables, it's very difficult to understand the relationship, the hierarchy, and like which are the ones which are currently most relevant for this particular project which the users are on. So, but there were still like a lot of blind spots that I wanted to cover before we like made a decision on developing that any further. And I think it was a really great step to go with this research. So we spoke with 9 participants, and it was a really great mix of both small and large organizations because what we discovered was their working styles with variables specifically, it's very different and like very contrasting, contradicting. But there was still like a few things that both of these subsets agreed on, and like talking about some improvements that's going to benefit both kinds of users. Um, Yeah, and jumping into the insights that we got from this research, I would start off with the actionable ones and then I'll slowly move to the learnings that we had because there's a quite a lot of those. So the first one says allow enforcing group variables at project levels. And why this is a requirement is because in large organizations, or sometimes even in small ones, some variables which are more critical for, let's say, for example, the Kubernetes credentials for the clusters, they are set at group level. And of course, like there's a lot of reason behind that. That could be for compliance, for security, to make sure that nothing breaks, especially for the deployments. But there's no way for them to enforce this on the levels below that, like for subgroups or projects, and they can easily be overridden. Um, there are scans in place, yes, for detecting those. So there's a very manual process that's being adopted for by all the organizations today, and there's no automated method of keeping a check on this. So I think it would make a really helpful feature if we work on this. Another one is add an indicator if a variable is being used by a project. And like even in the new design that we had, um, there's a list. We have alphabetized it. We try to be like we try to be as make it as usable as we could, but still there's no like very clear indicator of what are the variables which are currently being used. So it's all right if it exists at groups or group level, but which is the one which my project is using right now. So they want those ones to be more prominent in the table. So it doesn't take a lot of mental processing to understand that which are the like most critical ones here. Um, and there's a lack of, sorry, I'll first go to the actionable ones. So next one says improve the representation of groups and projects on the variable list view. Um, in this design, what we experimented with was like providing tooltips, but it seems like this is the kind of information that users would appreciate to be on the very first level because um, like this is this list can go really long, and relying on tooltip can really hurt the scannability of this list. Another one is encourage users to select relevant environment while adding a variable. So especially for the groups that sort of are responsible for managing variables, it becomes very like tiresome to make sure that there are no variables lingering around in projects and groups which are not usable, which were just probably created for some testing purpose. Um, and knowing which ones those are, it's really difficult and it requires a lot of human interaction. Like they have to speak with the users because there's no way they can get to see like if this is still being used somewhere and how critical that use case is. So there was a suggestion, there were a few suggestions that when we are allowing users to add a variable, if through certain cues on the UI, we could urge them to also select the relevant environment and not just rely on the key name for identification. Um, One thing that we have already open in relation to this is the issue for adding description. That would definitely be very helpful. Um, so we'll see like how much addition we need to make to that existing proposal. Now coming to, I think that was it. That was there were four actionable ones, and then now coming to learnings. So the first one, the first learning that I had from this research was there's a decent amount of lack of visibility into history and usage, and it's making managing variables really hard for the responsible roles, responsible teams. There is no audit trail, like there's hardly much information about who edited a variable at what point. And like I also mentioned before, there's no information about like when this was last used. There's a place which is not related to CI/CD where some information is available, but like coming to the variables page, there's hardly any information that can be dug out regarding the usage and history of a variable. The next one is users need to know which variables are recently used to make confident decisions. Is something that I've been touching upon in the other insights as well, so I won't spend a lot of time on this one, but yeah, like there's no clear indication if this was recently used or this has just been like existing since a long time and that's it. There's no, it's not required anymore. Then usability of variable features are not very well aligned with the rest of the product and they're not super intuitive. There are certain, like today I learned moments that Jocelyn and I had during the interviews, and I thought I would just make a list of those so that we have those in mind and even like create small issues to fix it. So first of all, there's no confirmation before deletion of a variable. It just goes away. Then a wildcard that users end up creating from the dropdown while adding a variable. Apparently, it lingers forever. Like it doesn't go away. I don't have like a lot of information on that, but this was a feedback from one of the participants. Then the variables are something that are used in every task. So, I mean, most of the users without even like asking being asked a direct question about the navigation part, they pointed out that first of all, why is it so hidden? So like we have to be sure that we think of a better place to locate these, and yeah, we have to make progress on that front as well. Then there are variables defined on the CI, on the UI, and on the CI file. So users are confused a little with our documentation because we don't, like terminology wise, we don't differentiate. So they're like, wait, should I be calling it something else? Are they the same thing? Um, we do have like a new page in the documentation which is about usage. So probably we can just expand there. Then by default, variables are expanded and it should be per use case. So apparently we receive feedback that it's not always uh, like great to have variables being expanded by default, like that checkbox being checked by default. It should rather be a decision to do that because it could have certain security concerns attached to it. Then there's no pagination even when the list runs like really long. And I learned that the limit that we have for variables is 200. And for large organizations, they actually reach like pretty close to the limit, is what we saw as an example. And like it's just a really long list on that page. And that pushes all the other setting options like so much below the whole thing. It's not a great experience. Next one is variables are higher in criticality, that are higher in criticality are stored at group level. It's just like something that we ask questions around, like what do you store at? What are the examples of variables that you store at product level versus group level? So everything that's a little more critical and is kind of enforced organization-wide is, of course, stored at the group level. Then users have scans in place to detect any value bypass or variable overriding at group level. Teams have their own like workflows in place, their own job definitions in place to kind of look for any bypassing of variable value that shouldn't happen. And when they do that, they kind of then get in touch with the person responsible to make any corrections. And it would just be very helpful to automate this entire process. Then I still like think that we need more information around this, but users require more granular control over access to variables. So some feedback that we got was that why does GitLab limit the association of variable to environments? Because sometimes it can be beyond that. Sometimes it just can be like twofold, as in there's a this variable is to be used for a smoke test, which is for this particular environment. So we do not like provide control at a more granular level, but rather we just like make associations directly with environments. And even with environments, what we are doing currently is we don't allow customization of like creating custom access. So let's say for production, if somebody they like if an organization wants only a bunch of users to have access to edit a variable that's for the production environment and so on. And that is it. This was, I think, I wanted to keep it 5 minutes, but that was definitely not possible. But yeah, a lot of learnings and a lot of work that we need to do. The next step for me is to create issues for each one of these. And that's it. Thank you.